I'm really just asking whether or not we notified the tenants, and it sounds like we didn't.
No.
And the reason I'm saying that is that I think it's hard to ask the public to come to an up or down vote on the last day and think that they're going to get their day in court, so to speak. So that's partly why I was asking the question, and that may be a bigger process question we just want to consider in the future, especially where we know there's a level of interest from the tenants, or at least I'm assuming that's the case, unless that's actually not the case.
Yes. Thank you. So I was notified by post that they did notify the tenants, and it is on the Lakeview Stables website or Facebook page
Event.
for today's. So they notified the seller to notify the tenants.
Okay, well, that's really not the same thing. And frankly, right. I appreciate you did that, but I'm really asking about our process, because now this is our process for discussion. But thank you for that feedback. And then the second question I just broadly want to ask, and this may be a question more for Post than our staff, but we would be purchasing the property with no conditions, meaning we're not going to have a stable. We're buying the land without the stable, potentially. That's what we're going to be doing at the hearing. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, that reinforces my point about having conversations with the neighbors that are out there already. Because even though this is not, the initial transaction isn't with us, it's still eventually with us. So I think that's important. I have to say that I've been concerned overall about the strategy in which we're purchasing park property. I really want to be respectful, frankly, to the amount of time that Supervisor Wasserman has spent on this already. My inclination actually was to vote no to set the public hearing, but I'm going to be voting yes to set the public hearing because of the work that's been done by Supervisor Wasserman. But the request I would make is I think the point that Supervisor Cortese raised about the details of the current transaction are actually very important to us, given the overlap of the transactions. I think if they were consecutive and not concurrent, that may have put us in a different situation. But the strategy we're using, I think, forces us to have a different kind of conversation with the current tenants and with the board in general prior to these items coming before the board. So thank you for that.
Supervisor Wasserman, I see your light is back on, sir.
Thank you. I want to say I appreciate all that's been said by the owner, by Post, the acquirer, by my fellow supervisors. Like I said, because there are residents there, it makes for a more difficult situation. I know in my years when I was with the town of Los Gatos, there were properties that were acquired for one reason or another. There were residents there, and that made it more difficult. In this particular instance, it's Post that's in contract with Mr. Lee. The county is not. To Supervisor Cortese's point that he mentioned, if for whatever reason that deal falls apart before December 18th, then our December 18th meeting is not happening. The purpose of today is simply to, well, it says adopt a resolution of the board and to authorize the clerk to set a December 18th day, which is the next step in the contract. I wish you had the contract with you here today. I wish you had legal opinion with you here today as far as interpretable one way or the other. But from my perspective, what this does is this gives, assuming there's 3 or more votes, this gives signal from Parks to Post that we are interested in, we want to acquire the property, should you acquire the property, for the purpose of making it additional parkland and connectivity of trails. I wish there was a way to, I wish the stables were in great shape. I wish the stables could stay. In my conversation with Post, they had another property where there were some stables. But the status quo, the current situation, the current condition of what's there is not inhabitable by man or beast. And there's no way that's going to get fixed before the sale goes through. Even if the county did it, it would be a decision before this board of $5 to $10 million and several years down the road to make happen. So in the interim, there is no easy solution at all for the existing 72 borders that are there in a place that has multiple red tags and a lot of buildings of a lot of concern to me and I know to Parks. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Supervisor. And Supervisor Cortese, I see your light is still on, sir. Additional comments?
Yeah, I just want to know, again, I may very well support the acquisition if this motion passes when we get to that point, to the hearing. I support, again, for all the reasons earlier stated, the acquisition of the property. But I just want to note that under steps following approval in the ledge file, there's really no indication of the kind of notification that you were talking about, Supervisor Chavez. So I'm not an aye vote on the motion, so I don't want to be offering friendly amendments, but maybe it should be noted that
So I'm going to make a
some
friendly
notification
amendment
needs to happen. Okay.
to Supervisor Wasserman and Yeager that we make sure that there's outreach done by the county to the tenants and the impacted community. Thank you.
Supervisor Cortese, does that complete your comment?
Yes, and thank you.
Yeah, see the light's still on. Just one. I have a number of thoughts, a number of things I'd like to say, and I'm not going to. I'm going to lean forward and vote on the screen, ask my colleagues to do so, and we'll note that all votes have now been cast, and we'll ask the clerk to please display the results, and the motion carries 4-1. So the motion is carried 4-1. Supervisor Cortese voting no for the record. And gentlemen, before you step away, at the risk of stating what I hope is obvious by now, it would be helpful to have all of these legal issues clearly defined and articulated when we see you on the 18th of December, because by then we're going to need to know what we need to know. Okay? Thank you all. Thank you very much. And could we make sure as well that you talk to Mr. Lee before he leaves to make sure everybody's clear on what the process is from this point forward? Mr. Lee, thank you for being with us. I know it's been a long day, sir. Thank you. All right. That takes us to what I believe, Madam Clerk, is the last item on our agenda today, and that was item 60-A-I. This was initially a consent calendar item that was removed from consent at the request of our county assessor. Mr. Stone, please have a seat. And